At first glance, the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians might seem like an age-old battle over religious ideologies. But peel back the layers, and what you find is a century-old territorial dispute that spiraled from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire and the shadows of colonial ambitions. This conflict isn't ancient, but rather a product of the early 20th century, born from the collapse of empires and the rise of national identities. The land in question has seen shifting populations and rulers for thousands of years, but it was the geopolitical rearrangements after World War I that set the stage for today's tensions. These disputes laid the groundwork for a struggle that still grips the attention of international politics. Understanding this conflict demands a grasp of its origins, the pivotal moments that defined it, and the relentless quest for peace. The Israel-Palestine conflict emerged as a territorial dispute in the early 1900s, rooted in the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the subsequent British Mandate. This was not a conflict driven by ancient religious differences, but rather by modern land claims. During the late Ottoman period, the region now known as Israel and Palestine was a tapestry of religious and ethnic diversity, comprising Muslims, Christians, and Jews. The early 20th century saw two parallel movements shaping the future of this land. Zionism among European Jews, aspiring for a Jewish state, and the burgeoning Palestinian national identity, seeking self-determination. As European Jews faced increasing persecution, the movement of Zionism gained momentum, advocating for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in their ancient Middle Eastern territories. Following World War I and the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, the British assumed control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate. They endorsed Jewish immigration, intensifying tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab residents who perceived this as a threat to their claims on the land. Notably, this period marked a significant shift, transforming the fabric of regional relations. Historians often underscore that these early 20th century dynamics are crucial for understanding the trajectory leading to today's continued dispute. The United Nations' 1947 proposal to partition the land into separate Jewish and Arab states was pivotal, marking the transition from mandate governance to an internationalized approach to addressing these contentious claims. The UN partition plan allocated approximately 56% of the territory to a Jewish state and about 43% to an Arab state, with Jerusalem as an international city. Jewish leaders accepted this partition, viewing it as a vital opportunity for sovereignty. However, the Arab leadership rejected it, perceiving it as imposed colonialism and an unjust allocation of land, exacerbating existing hostilities. The Jews proceeded with establishing the State of Israel in 1948, which immediately led to a full-scale war as neighboring Arab states invaded. Israel emerged victorious, but the war had massive repercussions. It resulted in Israel's expansion beyond the UN-designated borders and caused a catastrophic Palestinian refugee crisis. Approximately 720,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, creating a significant demographic shift and laying the foundation for future grievances. This division of land, though attempted with international mediation, unfortunately deepened the divide, setting the stage for further conflict that would persist beyond the original geographic boundaries laid out by the UN. As the conflict unfolded, territorial lines continued to shift through a series of wars, reshaping both the landscape and the political struggle between Israeli and Palestinian factions. The Six-Day War of 1967 was particularly consequential, with Israel seizing control of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights, changing the territorial dynamics dramatically. This occupation brought millions of Palestinians under Israeli military control, intensifying the friction and resentment among displaced populations and those remaining in the territories. The war solidified the territorial bases of Israeli control, but also complicated subsequent peace efforts, as the occupied territories became central to any negotiations aimed at resolving the conflict. Settlement expansions in these areas further complicated the prospect of a viable Palestinian state. As Israel implanted settlements, it altered demographic compositions and fueled international criticisms, claiming that such actions impeded peace efforts. the enduring nature of these military occupations and settlement expansions remains a major sticking point, fueling cycles of violence and diplomatic stalemates. Decades of conflict have only entrenched positions on both sides, proving the immense challenge of reconciling historical claims with present realities. Understanding the historical legacy of these wars and territorial occupations sheds light on why, despite various international and regional efforts, a comprehensive peace agreement remains elusive. From this we see that the central thread weaving through the Israel-Palestine conflict is fundamentally a struggle over land. It's a protracted and complex saga about national self-determination, competing territorial claims, and the legacies of colonialism and war. This understanding is supported by examining the origins of the dispute during the early 1900s, the pivotal UN partition plan of 1947, and the impact of subsequent wars and occupations. Together, these elements form a cohesive narrative explaining why resolution remains so challenging, despite numerous attempts at peace. In exploring the genesis of the conflict, we see that the British Mandate period was pivotal in sowing the seeds of discord. The influx of Jewish immigrants, driven by the Zionist movement and enabled by British policies, ignited tensions with the Arab residents who were cultivating their national identity. This formative period set the stage for claims over the land, delineating opposing national aspirations, a theme that echoes throughout the conflict's history. This emerging struggle took on new dimensions when the UN proposed its partition plan. While intended as a solution to competing claims, it effectively exacerbated tensions. The plan's acceptance by Jewish leaders and rejection by Arab leaders highlighted the asymmetry in perceptions of fairness and legitimacy. This decision cemented foundational grievances by not equitably addressing the parties' concerns, leading directly to war and subsequent displacement, a theme that continues to echo in today's refugee crisis. Further compounding these issues were the subsequent wars, especially the Six-Day War of 1967, which led to the occupation of additional territories by Israel. These conflicts entrenched the divisions created by earlier events and expanded them geographically. The occupation transformed the landscape into one of settlements and further heightened frictions, shaping the current geopolitical reality. As these historic events show, attempts to resolve the conflict without accounting for past grievances and current realities have repeatedly failed. Yet, there's a perspective suggesting that this land-centric narrative might oversimplify the conflict. Political, religious, and economic factors, interwoven with global power dynamics, also shape the encounters between Israelis and Palestinians. These dimensions add layers of complexity beyond mere territorial disputes. For some observers, viewing the conflict as purely land-based might cloud the underlying humanitarian concerns and the varying political contexts on the ground. However, the enduring core of the conflict suggests that, even if other factors are considered, they are intricately linked to territorial claims. Religion and politics, while influential, often reframe and reinforce claims to specific lands, historical sites, and natural resources. Similarly, geopolitical interests often manifest through territorial strategies, evident in settlement expansions and regional alliances. In every significant event of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the land emerges not merely as backdrop, but as central battleground and prize, dictating power relations and future prospects. Moreover, international efforts to mediate have consistently revolved around territorial discussions, demarcating borders, addressing refugee right of return, and managing resource allocations, which reinforces the conclusion that land issues cannot be sidelined. The persistence of settlements and the status of Jerusalem frequently top negotiation agendas, proving the centrality of land in this enduring conflict. In summary, while acknowledging the multifaceted nature of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the crux remains the quest for territory. This centrality is echoed in historical developments and ongoing negotiations. By recognizing the primacy of land in structuring this conflict and its entrenched dynamics, there's an opportunity to craft peace initiatives that address fundamental issues rather than ephemeral symptoms, charting a path tailored to the intractable realities on the ground.